Hey Foothills family, today we're in the 9th chapter of 1 Corinthians. And this book is full of questions and sometimes challenges that people have for Paul in regards to Christianity. And it's important to realize that the Corinth church, they live in a city and in a culture that's very pagan. And so they're learning about Christianity, they have given their lives to Christ, but they have a lot of questions. They're trying to figure it out. And so in this chapter, Paul is addressing some of those challenges, and it begins at first where people are starting to question Paul's position as an apostle. And he defends himself in verse 2. Let's pick it up there. He says, if to others I'm not an apostle, at least I am to you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. In short, the people that are receiving this letter, they have come to know Christ because of Paul's apostolic leadership. So they are the fruit, they are the seal, they demonstrate that Paul is an apostle. And what this goes to show is some people were questioning it, and it's important for us to be careful who we give authority to influence and decide things in our life. You know, we go to the Bible first, and then using that wisdom, we can form a group of counselors and mentors and friends that hopefully will all push us towards the right and God-honoring thing to do in our lives. But we need to be cautious because it's easy to have a ton of influences and to let the influences that aren't so great be louder than they should be. Paul goes on, and for the next 12 or so verses, he is going to tackle one complaint. And it seems that a lot of people are questioning whether apostles and ministry workers should get paid for their work. So Paul gives a bunch of examples. I want to read verses 7, 8, and then 13 and 14. Will you read with me? It says, who at any time serves as a soldier at his own expense? Who plants a vineyard and does not eat the fruit of it? Or who tends a flock and does not use the milk of that flock? I'm not speaking these things according to human judgment, or am I? Or does not the law also say these things? Verse 13. Do you not know that those who perform sacred services eat the food of the temple, and those who attend regularly to the altar have their share from the altar? Here's the catch. So also the Lord directed those who proclaim the gospel to get their living from the gospel. Now, I am grateful that I know, most people that I know don't really have an issue. They recognize that vocational ministry is work and it takes time and effort, and that it deserves a wage, a living wage. And in fact, here at Foothills, I belong to an incredible congregation of so many faithful believers. And because of that, we're able to do an incredible amount of outreach and missions beyond these walls, and also do a great amount of ministry and discipling within these walls to those who call Foothills home. And so it comes with great joy that I can do this as my job. I can work here and put all my energy and effort into doing this. And it's not something I ever want to take for granted. And I know that the pastoral staff here, we work really hard to steward this gift and this vocation well. Paul does something interesting. He argues that he deserves to be paid, and then he says that he doesn't receive any gifts. Let's read that in verse 11 and 12. It says, if we sowed spiritual things to you, is it too much if we reap material things from you? If others share this right over you, do we not more? Nevertheless, we did not use this right, but we endure all things so that we will cause no hindrance to the gospel of Christ. So Paul, he recognizes that although he has a right to be paid, he does not want to let it become something that hinders the gospel message that he delivers. And we see and we know from other books of the Bible that Paul was a tent maker. So he took time and invested time out of his day and energy to make tents, to create or make a living off those things, so that when he presented the gospel, there would be as few hindrances or roadblocks as possible. Now, the gospel is an offense to itself, and it is a good thing. You know, it comes against our flesh in a way that we need to be offended. But Paul here is saying, I'm going to limit myself. I'm going to remove something that even though I have a right to receive, I'm not going to take it so that the gospel can reach further lengths and to further extents. It reminds me, I have a friend who's done multiple mission trips in Africa, and in certain parts of Africa, going into the ministry is seen as a lucrative move. And what happens is these pastors, they'll take 2 or 3 offerings per service, and they preach the prosperity gospel, and there's a lot wrong with what happens there. And so my friend she knows of a pastor who started a church in these areas, in this area, and they didn't take an offering for a while, for months. And they did it to really demonstrate that they entered into the ministry and they opened a church because of the message, because of the gospel, because of the saving grace that's found in Jesus Christ, and not for finances. And eventually they took an offering, and eventually they needed to continue their work. But at first they didn't want to claim something that they technically had a right to, but they didn't want to grab onto it and hinder the message that they were giving. Paul goes on to further explain this in verse 20. Will you guys read with me? And we're going to read 20, 22, and 23. He says, "To the Jews I became a Jew, so that I might win Jews. And to those who are under the law, as under the law, though not being myself under the law, so that I might win them that are under the law. To the weak I became weak, so that I might win the weak. And I have become all things to all men, so that I by all means save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker in it." I love this. He's not saying I'm changing my convictions. He's not pandering to anyone, but rather he's demonstrating that he wants to consider the people he's ministering to and how his actions are going to be received by them, and then act in such a way that the gospel message may be received as powerfully and without any hindrances, or at least as few as possible. Again, he does this at personal cost. It's difficult. It means he doesn't get to do some things that he technically, by law, by the freedom that he's received in Jesus Christ, he could do, but he abstains so that the gospel can be preached and received effectively. He goes on, and the last verse I want to highlight last verses are 9, 24, and 25. And they say, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. For everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable." So my takeaway for everyone is simply this: let's live for the gospel. Knowing the Lord is this incredible gift and blessing. And we get to then receive that and take it to other people. And that is an added gift. That's something that we shouldn't take for granted that we've received, or that we have an ability to give and help lead people to Jesus. And we never want to compromise. We don't want to do something wrong in the name of the gospel. That doesn't work. That doesn't add up. But we also don't want to be holding on to the earthly blessings that we get because we know Jesus so tightly that we do not grab a hold of the greater eternal rewards that we will receive as we lower ourselves here for the sake of Jesus and his gospel, and bring that message to other people. Be blessed, Foothills. Thank you so much.